say if I told you that collectively as a nation, we're losing 20 lakh rupees every minute? 20 lakhs that could be used to create a model to rent out agricultural equipment for the Indian farmers. Kamal Kisan. Or 20 lakhs that could help you make your travel plans at the click of a button. Yatra. Or 20 lakhs that could transform the way that the Indian woman buys lingerie. Thank God Almighty, Zivame. Is that number large enough to have caught your attention? Because that is the loss that we face every day a woman engineer drops out of the race. That is the opportunity cost that we have to bear when we don't support the woman entrepreneur who's bringing her ideas to the fore. And that is the price of the vanishing Indian technical woman. You know, I volunteer a lot. I go out to a lot of schools. I talk to a lot of students. And most of the girls there have stellar academic records. They're doing very well. What they really crave is the ability to get hands-on, more experiential learning, to be able to participate in a group. One of the things that when I was talking to them about, I was trying to find out, what is it that they really, really want? Do you really want to collaborate? So I backed up a little bit and tried to think about this a little bit more, right? Across the world, the STEM numbers, which we talk about, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, the problem is really of pipeline, right? Not enough girls getting into it and really causing a lack of diversity in the workplace. Well, here in India, we do not have that problem, right? More than 30% of our engineering college graduates are women. We really want our girls to be women engineers. We really are pushing them towards it. I'll give you an example, right? I have this running joke in my family. My cousin, his young daughter, was lagging behind in her dance class, so his wife was sort of very good-naturedly complaining to him about it. And he just shrugged his shoulders and said, Kanakku vanda sari, right? Which is as long as she's good at math. Which is great, right? That bucket that we talk about, that pipeline, it's filling our bucket. We have no problems with that. The problem we have is with the leak in the bucket. So interestingly, when you look at senior leadership numbers, our number is at 14%. Suddenly that 30-40% is missing. And if you go to board level seats, that drops even more to 7%. So why are we investing all this time and energy and effort into making our girls engineers only to watch them disappear? I have a few theories around this which I'd like to share with you today. The first one being the collaboration crisis. Now, I was telling you earlier, I go to a lot of these colleges and talk to these women. All are doing really well. But the challenge of collaboration they face is because we live in a world where we have these 24-hour hackathons, which are all-nighters, but the safety and security of women students is paramount in the minds of the organizers. So the women are simply left behind. I have a friend who organizes these hackathons, right? These are basically all-night coding parties. And he was telling me the very few women that actually show up to these events end up feeling very frustrated. So I was asking him, what's going on? Why is that? So the deal is that the boys are guzzling Red Bull through the night and working on these really, really challenging problems in what we call the graveyard shift, which is really late night shift. But the girls have to go home. So when they come back the next morning, eager to really contribute, there's nothing left to do. All the big problems are solved already. So they end up feeling that they've participated very little, added very little to the whole, solving of the problem. And it's more disappointing than encouraging or empowering. So these events, they're just not designed for women. Whether it is a 7 p.m. curfew at our hostels, or the fact that we're unable to participate in that 10 p.m., cutting chai break, everybody knows that that's where the best ideas are formed. There is no way for the women to collaborate with their peers, with their colleagues, and really improve their learning. So that drip drop from that leaky bucket, that happens just about now. I'd like to talk a little bit about the long road to learning. Maternity break, just 2 words. Right? I've had 2 kids. It's been a fantastic time, 6 months with a newborn. It's a really, really magical experience. But I will say that along with handling that bliss of motherhood, you're also dealing with the angst of missing out. Especially when women come back to the workplace, you feel a bit lost. And that's, I would say, it's exacerbated in technology, which is a field that really waits for nobody, right? Moving at a very, very rapid pace. So I come back from maternity break, and then I find that my entire workplace has shifted, right? The project that I was working on has moved 3 times in terms of direction. The number of lines of code that's been added to the code base has gone up by thousands, most of which I don't understand anymore. Multiple patents have been filed, and my team has become so much more knowledgeable and so far ahead of me that it's almost overwhelming. I wonder, when will I have the time to learn, to catch up, and feel productive and useful again in that environment? So I know what it takes, to manage your home, manage your work, manage your family, etc. But I struggle with the challenge of learning a new framework at work and managing 7th grade chemistry at home. It's amazing, right? Because the feeling of inadequacy comes from being in a place where everybody is running this 10-minute mile marathon for the runners in the group, whereas I barely have time to catch a breath. That second gush from that leaky bucket, that happens at this stage. And let's talk a little bit about decisions. As Indian girls, we don't get a whole lot of opportunities to make decisions. Growing up, our parents decide what you're going to wear, where you're going to study, what job offer you're going to pick, and of course, who you're going to marry. Right? Someone else is always making these decisions for you. So when you're presented with a choice, we really struggle. I see this more now when I'm trying, aspiring to be an entrepreneur. The whole decision of moving from corporate to trying to do something on my own came with a lot of deliberations. I was checking with my friends, my family, my colleagues, my house help, everybody. And then I was thinking, okay, how do I, evaluate the impact of this decision on every facet of my life? What does this mean for my spouse's travel and his work? What does this mean to my parents' health? What does this mean to my kids' exam schedules? It's endless. Supposing you do take that plunge, you say, okay, I'm going to sort all this out, but I'm actually going to jump in. The next set of questions begin, which is really about, do I have a product that is perfect enough? Can I go out to a VC to ask for money? What if they think I'm overreaching? What if I should add like 2 more customer endorsements before I actually go out? And of course, that ever-hanging sword. What if I fail? Why is it that as women, we have this analysis paralysis when it comes to making a choice? It's because we haven't done enough of it. Why is it that we are so terrified of failure? It's because we have always been taught to aspire for perfection rather than ambition. Never ambition. It's interesting. A lot of people ask me, Rashmi, why are you so passionate about this? Why do you work on this so much? And, I have a single reason. Besides the fact that I am a technologist and I have 2 girls at home, there is another reason. And that reason is, it's sort of interesting. I, growing up, did not face these hardships, right? Gender parity was a non-issue for me. Many years ago, when I was 20, I decided to get married. So I'd like to say that I was coerced into it and my parents forced me into getting married. However, my husband's in the audience and I don't think this is going to go down very well with him. So I'll stick to the truth. So I told my parents I want to get married when I was 20. So my father, after he got over the initial shock of that decision, he sat me down and he said, your brother chose to get married to the person of his choice and he chose to do it whenever he wanted to. You seem like you're fairly mature at about 19, so I'm going to give you that same choice. While the impact of that decision did not hit me then, it does now. Because not every girl's story begins that way. If our girls are vanishing because of the lack of choice, it's really our responsibility as parents and teachers to be able to help them make those really tough decisions. Help them work on the hardest and most difficult problems and dream big, like dream huge, right? I'll talk about this picture in a minute. I have a daughter and she's a huge Bolt fan. So we were watching the Olympics together a little while ago, and she turned to me and said, Mom, if I want to be a runner or an athlete, how am I going to make money? How does Usain Bolt make money? And I'm like thinking to myself, and I'm saying, well, he's excellent at math. Let's start with that. But then I bit my tongue, and I said, you can be whatever you want without any fear. We have to give our girls the opportunity to make real choices with real consequences, right? And to be able to support them when those choices don't go as well as they expect it to. If our girls are disappearing because of the lack of collaboration, we really need to figure out a way to level the playing field. You have a woman in a meeting and she's not saying anything. Ask her for her opinion. When we talk about women coming back for the maternity leave, give them tough problems to solve. Please don't soften the deal for us. But give them the time to be able to learn the skills to be able to solve that and be successful. If you want to have coding contests, sure, go ahead. Make it 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That way everybody gets a fair chance. Nobody is asking for preferential treatment. That would be a disservice both to the men and the deserving women out there. What I am asking for, however, is just a little bit of awareness. Awareness of the roadblocks and challenges that your women colleagues face in the workplace. Awareness of the fact that the girl students in your class, if they're working on their robotics experiments, they're also probably trying to learn how to make the perfect chapati. And awareness of the fact that just a little bit of intervention from any of us can bring that vanishing figure back into the fray. And to the girl engineers in the room, I'd really like to introduce you, to the power of yes. Because there's a 50% chance of success as there is a failure. So don't be afraid of making those choices. The power of yes is something that I hit upon just a few years ago. The idea is really very simple. For 1 year, just use the opportunity to say yes to everything that comes your way. Every single thing, whether it's a big opportunity or a small one, whether it's an important one or an insignificant one, if it interests you, say yes. Say yes to have your code reviewed by the toughest colleague that you know. Say yes to steer the next architects committee. Say yes to submit a poster to the next tier 1 conference. Because when you say yes, when you make that commitment, you will find a way to make it happen. I can assure you of that. And the opportunities of learning that come your way through that is incredible. Don't be a part of the 20 lakh write-off. And maybe someday, you'll get an opportunity to share your story at a big event or an important stage. You may wonder, what did they see in you to ask you? You may wonder if you're important enough, accomplished enough, or articulate enough. Should you ask for a little bit more time to prepare? Should you check off those 5 other things that you want to do before you get out there to speak? Should you? Can you? Will you? Or maybe, just maybe, you'll say yes. Thank you.